Hey guys, alright, so here's my problem with the water heater. I have this valve here, okay, that lets me winterize. It bypasses, it's supposed to bypass so that water doesn't go into the water heater. Problem is there's a check valve right behind this valve here. Let's see if you guys can see that. Right behind here there's a check valve going into the water heater. Now a check valve allows water to go in but not out. At least that's how it's supposed to be. So in other words, when this valve is closed, it is not supposed to allow water to go into the tank. Now what that does is it allows the RV manufacturer to only have to put in one valve. Is basically what it comes down to. It makes it easier for people that might forget to turn valves. So basically bypass, not bypass. Other RVs would have 3 valves where there'd be one in the middle and then one on each end, and you would turn the 2 off and open the other, and that would be your bypass. I'm taking the check valve completely out, and I'm going to put in a regular ball valve that I can just add a second valve. So when I go to winterize it, I'll close that valve and be done with it. I'm not going to put another check valve in. Check valve was cheaper, but you know something? I just don't want to have to deal with it. From what I read online, it's a common problem, and I want to be done with it completely. So I put the check valve, I'm going to take the check valve out, and I'm going to thread this ball valve in. The only other problem I have is I have to cut this PEX, remove it in order to take this out. To spin it, rather. So there's no union or anything to take apart. So I had to buy some PEX and a crimp tool in order to put it back in, but that's my project for tonight. Alright, well, you can see here, I got the valve out. I got the check valve out. And I gotta tell you guys, it's because of the internet. I even knew that this check valve was even there. It appears to be okay. It might have been stuck open from the back side here. Something stuck in between the little plunger there on the inside. But I'm still going to remove it and put in this ball valve. You know, one thing about ball valves, quarter turn ball valves, they very rarely fail. So check valves, especially these spring-loaded ones, a little piece of solder, little debris, any calcium, anything in there gets in there and holds this open, it won't, there's no way to clear it without taking it off. And to do that, I actually have to cut PEX. So having the ball valve, I think, is going to be just fine. But without the internet, without you guys on YouTube and some of the other forums, I wouldn't even know this was there. So hopefully somebody watches this video and get something out of it. So now I'm going to put in this valve. I have a close nipple on the end of the valve here, which I'm going to put some Teflon tape on. I'm going to clean up these threads, clean off all this old thread sealant that's in there. You guys can see that. And then screw this in, and then screw the valve on. And then put it all back together again. And hopefully that solves the problem. I really think it will. I think, you know, the reason why it was blowing by into the tank was this check valve here. Because that's the whole purpose of this check valve, is for winterization. And I'd rather use a manual valve. Alright, let me put it all back together again. Alright, well, I got it all back together again. I left an extra crimp ring on here. I figured I'd just put another one just in case one of these failed. I wouldn't have to, I could just cut it off and then re-crimp it and try it, you know, to get me by without having to unscrew everything. Everything's tight. And here's the valve. So close, open, up on top here. And then I have my bypass valve. So that would be normal flow, and then during winterization, I could flip it up and then close this one off, like that. Normal operation, this one would be open. Now if you notice the way the handles are, I can't have this one closed and this one at the same time. In order to bypass or go to normal, I have to close this one, open, close. So that should do what I need it to do. Now we're going to put some antifreeze in the line and we're going to pressurize and see what happens. Alright, so unfortunately I'm using a flashlight here. I am going to flip on the pump and pressurize. So I'm going to want that closed. And I'm going to want this on bypass. Just like that. So that should not fill the hot water heater. I do have the plug out. So let's see what happens. Let's turn the pump on. Okay, the pump just shut off, which tells me that it works. Because if this was leaking, or as it was before, the pump would continue to pump and pump all the antifreeze right into the hot water heater. The hot water heater is a 10-gallon hot water heater. It's really, I mean, not that it's not possible, but the last thing I want to do is put 10 gallons of antifreeze into the hot water heater. See? So I turn this valve. The valve I just put in, if I open that valve, the pump kicks on and it starts to put antifreeze back into the tank. So, huge success. Everything looks good. I don't feel any drips. I'm going to put like some paper towel in here and wipe it all up and then leave it pressurized. And what that'll do is in the morning, if I should, the paper towel should be wet, then I know I have a drip somewhere and go that route. I will shut the pump off because the last thing I want to do is have the pump start running and keep pumping antifreeze in. I mean, I only have a gallon in there, but I don't want a gallon of antifreeze flowing onto the floor in here. So, yeah, so that's it. That's a big one. It was a good repair. Learned a lot on this one, I'll tell you that. Had no clue. I was ready to replace this valve here. And I probably would have, and it's not a cheap valve to replace. I mean, $30, $40, something like that. Until I, again, got online, started researching, reading. A lot of people go out and they buy RVs or they buy trailers, campers, and they post a lot of questions, but they never want to do any of the research for themselves. Unfortunately, it's very tough to find answers or understand answers if you don't teach yourself. So you kind of got to go out there, you got to read, you got to ask questions, but you also got to look for questions that have already been answered on some of these forums. Do the search and read through the material. I would never have known about that check valve. I didn't ask anyone. All I did was read, and then I followed that up and checked. I said, oh, maybe there's a check valve because somebody else mentioned it. And then I started asking questions specifically about the check valve, and that's what led me to this solution here. So it's a matter of learning as you go, but it's also a matter of having the patience to really, dive in and try to find the answer yourself rather than try to have somebody explain it to you. Because if you don't know anything, it's hard to understand what somebody's trying to explain to you. All right, well, that's it. There you go. There's the fix. Nice valve back there. And another problem solved. Cool. All right, guys, we'll talk to you soon.